Welcome back, guys, to our final episode of Afternoon B for the series. Can't believe it's been 9 weeks already. It's gone quick. We've had fun. We've had a laugh. And for the last episode today, we're going to hand over to the wonderful Fran, who's going to introduce her topic and talk all about the future. So, Fran, if I hand over to you and you can introduce it.
Yeah, super. So today's talk is all about post-human. So I thought it was apt to talk about the future since this was our last episode of the series, so we can start looking ahead to what's next. But really what we're going to start off is thinking about, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. It's all about digital and it's all about data. And we're starting to realise what that's worth, how that's changing the creative industries, how it's impacting jobs, impacting the way we teach as well. It's also impacting, our lives as consumers, how we buy, what we view, who we talk to, and, kind of how we journey through life. Our kind of journeys day to day are now very different. So I think today what we wanted to do was kind of just talk through, there'll be some kind of anecdotes about, our own experiences with tech. I'm sure we've all had some great tech fails, even actually in this series we've had lovely tech fails. But it's also, there's some great things as well, some really great opportunities with tech. So we're going to try and balance that conversation. And the different areas that are quite exciting, I think, at the moment are AI. So thinking about, how technology is almost, kind of replicating the kind of human mind and machine learning and what we can get from that. You've also got sort of VR and AR, which is specifically in terms of retail quite an exciting space, but there's lots and lots of other things as well that come into that. The algorithm, I remember vividly the upset when Instagram changed the algorithm. So it'd be quite interesting to talk about how we've had run-ins with algorithms over the time. And how they've got better and how they've got smarter as well. I think that's also quite interesting is watching the technology grow. I think that kind of covers the main areas that I wanted to talk about. But I think I will start with maybe thinking about algorithms, if that's all right, everyone, because I have quite a funny little story about shopping online. So I was shopping for myself normally. But then I was starting to buy my sister some presents because my sister was having a baby, so I bought her some maternity clothes. I was also looking at like baby presents as well. I was very excited, and unbeknownst to me, what that was doing, me searching, me browsing within my shopping sites, but also open browsing on like Google and stuff, was that it was tweaking what the data knew about me instantly. The data thought that I was pregnant. And so all of a sudden, it's kind of weird thing. You've all seen this, like when you browse something online and you go on Facebook or whatever, and then there's these like posts that appear, and you see it's sponsored. And you start seeing and this was about 5 years ago, so you start seeing how things work. And all of a sudden, I just started seeing waves and waves of, preggers clothing, baby stuff, even like clear blue pregnancy testing. It was insane. Everything I saw was about that. And if I didn't kind of think, well, that's my doing, that's me clicking on stuff and browsing stuff, you can imagine how someone would start to think, what does this mean? Is this fate? Maybe I should be thinking about having a family or something, because it can actually kind of mess with your brain a bit if you don't understand how it works. But it took me ages to retrain, because I kind of understood that my actions had changed that. It took me ages to retrain all of the algorithms, so Amazon, Marks and Spencer's, John Lewis, or whatever, or wherever I was shopping that was causing this, and start typing in things that were completely opposite, and it took ages to do it, but I still to this day don't really understand why I stopped seeing it, whether I was successful at retraining it, by not buying anything else, or, whether, weirdly enough, whether it does actually understand pregnancy and maybe 9 months later it stops showing you things like that. I don't know, but you do kind of start questioning how much does it know about you, how much does it understand as well, like a human would understand. But I was just wondering whether you guys have had any kind of freaky, I'm being watched and being listened to experiences.
Just to pick up on that, Fran, when you did you're saying about the 9 month stuff, because you were buying maternity clothes and then gifts.
Yeah.
Did it sort of change, you know, from the clear blue to like the cot type thing? Do you know what I mean? Did it go?
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like it followed like a well, test, and there's a pregnancy, and then there's a birth. It wasn't as cut as that. That would, I think, would have weirded me out.
Yeah, completely.
It does make you wonder though whether that's the next thing, whether they have to understand human things to, you know, that might make a better sale if you actually understand the customer.
I think there's a couple of things within that. Obviously, there's algorithms and AI, but also there's the back end of it, which is also the companies setting up their advertising and sponsored ad campaigns badly, because at the end of the day, you know, they're not actually clocked on to the fact that you have not either engaged within a certain time frame, that, you know, that you're either pregnant or that you still need to buy a gift, to stop showing those ads. And the fact that those ads are still being shown to you subsequent months afterwards means that, you know, there's lots of companies out there that have wasted a lot of money on throwing, you know, advertising campaigns at you. So there's, you know, as well as kind of the AI and the algorithm, there is quite a massive kind of human error that's going on there that we also need to address when we're kind of trying to target and retarget you know, individuals to be able to kind of engage with our content.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? Because you think about, and that's where that idea that although this is, you know, you talk about things like algorithms and AI, there's always a human element to it. There's always a human input, like you say, like with the advertising. So they're trying to use the data, but they're adding in kind of human assumptions, I suppose. And like you say, that kind of laziness of running an advertising campaign maybe too long or not with enough.
Yeah, because technically, if you've actually gone on and bought you know, a baby product, then they should stop advertising to you. If you're still continuing to see those adverts after you've purchased, which I think we've all got experiences of times when we've gone onto fashion websites, bought that lovely pair of boots, and 3 months later they're still showing that lovely pair of boots. It's like, yeah, I've got it.
Yeah,
I've got it.
But they're now half price, and you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, and so it's kind of like,
yeah.
You know those boots you bought for $5,000? They're now good.
Exactly. But actually, what they should have done within the campaign was gone from moving from showing you those boots to showing you something else within the range that you might be more targeted to. And that's how, you know, we have, you know, I think sponsored ads and algorithms and stuff have become a bit more smart in terms of how we target. But, you know, there is an element of human error and an element of laziness there in terms of how we switch that ad off and we show you a new ad to get you to buy something different.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other thing is that kind of user journey as well, isn't it? It's that it's knowing how much you have control over. And I think the whole kind of cookies and, you know, now you're getting that sign up that says, oh, you don't want a personalised advertising journey. And it's like, do I want one? Well, I'm not sure. And then you start wondering whether actually maybe it's better to be advertised stuff that you want rather than random stuff. But it's difficult to know.
But then how random is the random stuff, really? Like if you were to
and
say...
how do they know what you want as well?
Exactly. Yeah. If you've never been on them, they personalise your ad journey. They already know how you shop, your journey through the data they've bought, period. So it's like this personalised element. It's like, even if you don't click it, you're probably going to get some kind of tailored experience anyway. But like Toyin said, again, how do they know what you want in terms of how personal can it be? And like you said, it comes back to that human element. I think that's why when we talk about AI and it's like, oh my God, human race wiped out. It's like, no, there still has to be that element of human side until there are machines, even when there are machines that can feel emotions or a conscience or a personality or whatnot. I think we always need that human inclusion. But yeah, I always find the same when it says personalise your ad journey. So I didn't come on here for an ad journey. I come on here to get something, and now I've walked away with a load of crap I probably don't need.
Yeah, typical. This is the thing. But I think what was interesting, what you said there, was that idea about personalised journeys, and it made me think about the Black Mirror episode, where you could choose how that goes. And I think that's really fascinating how we're all, you know, we could watch the same thing as each other now, but actually watch something different. And and the fact that you can kind of binge watch series, you know, the binge watch feature on Netflix is a genius piece of equipment. I mean, you barely look at your phone and it's already started the next episode. You know, you can easily just marathon for a week. But I feel like that kind of thing is really interesting. Is that it used to be like there was a series, you know, they'd release an episode every week on the old TV. And I just find that quite interesting about how now, before you talk about the series, you're like, but where are you? Just so I don't spoil it or spoiler alert kind of.
Yeah, and I think Netflix is a great model for that in terms of learning. When you initially brought up this topic, I started looking into it, and Netflix was one that, so they run a normal A/B testing system. So it will be like they say that 83% of people on Netflix will choose something based on the cover art for it. And that's just a standard. But then you will notice that over 2-3 weeks, that cover art will change. If you click on that and you don't click on another one, there'll be a reason why. So then they'll tailor the cover art to that. So they found out that people in the UK are more likely to click on cover art when there's someone showing emotion, there's a maximum of 3 people on the cover art, and there's something else. And then in Germany it was different, and in Brazil it was different. And it's like, it goes, and then even with I think it was when you pause it, or if you fast forward or you go back, it doesn't take you, although it says 5-10 seconds, it will take you back like 13, or forward 13, so that you're always going to have to go back to rewatch what you've missed, and then find the exact point. And then it's crazy the amount that they can learn from little nuances that you wouldn't even think. You just think, oh, that looks good, I'll put that on. But like the thinking behind it is like, that's exactly why they're going to watch it, because it's got X, Y, and Z in it. It's crazy. I think Fran's
incredible, isn't it? But that's sort of that's sort of combining that kind of data. You know what you were saying, because I think, you know, when you were talking about algorithms before, Fran, and you think I remember buying for my dad, I think, at Christmas, something sort of, you know, shed related or something. And then literally within that second, I started getting outside furniture, garden sort of stuff. But like you're saying, that's a long time. I think Fran's been
maybe she's messed up the algorithm.
Yeah,
she's learned too much, and they thought, we need to get rid of her. She knows too much.
I think she's been done by the cyber police. And I think, but it was very quick to pick up on that, but it was really long to get rid of it. You know, so I think that goes back to what you're saying, Toy, and it's like the instant of that picking on what I was looking at and how long that was embedded into my algorithms for. Whereas I'd only looked at it for like a day or so. It didn't marry up. It was like a disconnect. And then thinking about what Fran was also talking about how you combine that intelligence. And if I think about it in a retail sort of experience currency, it reminds me of when iPads first came into store, and people were like, we need iPads, we need to be interactive, and they literally were just hands with iPads on that they weren't anything apart from, we've got iPads, we're digital, you know. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, and going back to that quote as well that Fran included about, you know, her saying that we can't fear the data, we need to make the data, and that's experience for us, and how we actually massively integrate that and how we integrate that into that whole retail experience, so that we, and on Fran's calling me, I'm going to go on mute for this little technical on this AI thing, and I'm going to hand over to you two while I deal with our host for the day.
You'll probably get some sponsored ads about phone calls now. A really good phone tariff.
And then there was two.
We're slowly dropping off. The algorithm's getting us all.
That's so funny. But actually, I think it's quite interesting, this whole kind of algorithm, data, and everything else that's kind of going on, because, you know, as we kind of say, you know, what's going on this week in the US with the massive kind of committee hearing where they've got Amazon, Jeff Bezos, they've got Mark Zuckerberg, they've got Twitter, you know, you've got Apple, all sitting in a room. You know, these 4 massive companies that own so much of our data and own so much of the digital kind of online world, and are controlling how we're marketed to, how we spend our money, you know, what we have access to as well as individuals, you know, and I think that's very interesting how, you know, in the future, how that kind of gets managed kind of going forward, because, you know, whatever is created, whether it's the new virtual reality, you know, new technology, all those kind of technologies tend to get absorbed back into one of these four big companies.
Yeah.
They are the dominant kind of forces in terms of, you know, constructing and dictating how we consume and how we kind of interact with them, so to speak.
And like you say, four big companies, and it's a sign of the times in terms of, if this was the same case 20 years ago, you wouldn't be turning to companies for this kind of understanding of your people, you consume. You'd be turning to the government or the census. It shows now you have to turn to corporate companies to get this data. I saw also this week on Amazon about, I think it was yesterday, it was like, oh, Amazon Fresh is now part of your Amazon Prime. And everyone's like, that's brilliant, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but they're not just in your home now, they're in your fridge. Like, and how far does it go? Will it be a case of you buy, I don't know, 8 bags of carrots a week, 2 bags of apples, or you buy a chocolate bar? They learn that, and then it's like, oh, you've bought too much. Could it get to the stage where it's like, in terms of, on a national index of obesity scale, maybe you're buying too much chocolate. How about you buy this? Like, where does it end in terms of, like, when you see these films and, like, from, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, and there's always forward-thinking technology, and when you look at it now and compare it, you think we're not really that far off that. We're not really that far, and that's the scary part.
So but
there's been starting to have conversations about, controlling options. I sort of heard a snippet on the radio yesterday talking about obesity and stuff like that. Oh, look, Fran's in the waiting room on our tech episode. This is ironic. And they were saying that they are going to start, you know, informing and monitoring more what you shop. So I do all my family weekly shop online. So we get the regular things in your shopping basket. She's back, people.
Oh, we thought you'd been nabbed by the algorithm, please.
Join us again.
I'm back. I love that the tech failed on the tech episode.
Did you click on one of your pregnancy ads? Like a really good offer for a pram or something, and it closed it.
Yeah. Well, you had to wait for 30 seconds. What's the result, Fran? Live on air.
The tech gods might actually have it in for me. Maybe I'm saying a bit too much.
You know too much. You're a whistleblower.
Yeah.
It's with your cyber hair as well. You know what I mean?
It's like, Yeah. So, I mean, it brings me to another point of when updates are scheduled and you have no control, and it just goes, this computer will restart in 1 minute. I was like, oh, no.
Not now.
I think it's brilliant. It encapsulates everything, doesn't it?
Joy of joys. I can't even remember what we were talking about.
Well, we've moved on to sort of, you know, Louis was talking about Amazon.
Fresh.
What was it? Yeah, Fresh become part of Prime, and then they'll be in your fridge. And then we were talking about, you know, when you regularly shop, and then actually there's been starting to have comments. I've heard sort of on, you know, the BBC and other channels or whatever, but you know, they're talking about the government monitoring more about quantities and buying and you know, the obesity and all that kind of stuff. And Louis was sort of saying, oh, you know, so if you buy too much chocolate, you know, in a week, are they going to start suggesting? It's all that kind of, you know, that kind of control.
Just get it delivered to your neighbour.
Yeah.
There's things like that already kind of happening in terms of how companies are using our data and how they're communicating back to us. You know, there's a debit card that lots of my friends have kind of got, which basically, you know, it's an online kind of bank account, and it literally will kind of, you know, you can kind of, you know, you go and do your transactions and stuff on it, and then every week it will basically kind of give you send you a kind of like breakdown, and it'll kind of say, you have spent this week £50 on coffee.
I have that.
Yeah.
You have spent this week, you know, £100 on eating out, and you're kind of like, oh my God. And again, that kind of makes people kind of realise where their money's going and maybe change and shape their behaviour. So even with, you know, without kind of thinking about tech, tech companies, even just general service companies are thinking about how to kind of get consumers to change their behaviour and think about, maybe saving a bit more, saving £10 of that coffee money you spend every week and put it into a bank account, towards a holiday or whatever else, so to speak. So there's lots of that kind of behaviour already seeping in through relevant companies and services that we use and to try and change our behaviours.
Yeah, and it's that shaking up the status quo. I mean, especially with, like you're talking about, there's a few of them now, of these digital debit card services, and then with the whole evolution of fintech, and I was reading an article the other day, and they said Barclays, Santander, all the big ones have known about it for years, but have still been stuck in this traditional way of, which we all have for the past, up until the past 5-10 years, of no, money's not going to change the way we purchase, the way we consume. And now it is, and people are starting to go contactless and and paperless. It's a case of, we actually need to look into online banking now, because you've got these unicorn companies who are smashing it at the moment. And like you say, it does change your behaviour. When you see you've spent £100 a week eating out, you're like, is it really that much? I don't need to do that. And it's like, so it is definitely changing consumer behaviour for sure.
But then I think this whole period, along with everything else we've discussed over these last few weeks, has also accelerated. And, because, my dad was talking about, when it first happened in COVID, I went and got some cash out from the machine, all that kind of stuff. And he's not, he's not an archaic man in that sense, but just generationally. And he goes, I haven't used any of it because they've been doing stuff online, or they've been going to the shop, but they've been using their card because people are refusing to take cash. They're refusing to take cash because they don't want that.
Since the beginning of March, I've literally not had a penny or a note past my hands since the beginning of March.
I went to.
It's almost not alien now, isn't it?
Yeah, Westfield have got massive signs up basically saying just use contactless or use a card. Like, they don't want to accept, and that's like a corporate retail park, like it's on that kind of level.
I mean, it brings there is an interesting argument against it, and I know kind of definitely within the kind of, I suppose, slightly green Extinction Rebellion community and people like that is the worry that as soon as you get rid of cash, as soon as you become a cashless society, there is that worry that everything is monitored, everything can be traced, and obviously for outstanding citizens, that's totally fine. But there's also certain pockets of things where you don't want, where you don't want to be traced. Like, when I was a kid, I used to do chores and I used to get money in my pocket. And I can't imagine having to give a 5-year-old a bank account so that you can literally give them money so that they can spend, And then do you value it the same? If you've got that, if you give a child money to hold and actually get them to spend it and then count what they've got left, that transaction for them is really valuable as a learning tool. So if you change that, I don't know, does it remove it, or is it equally as
I think it removes that. Talking about the whole thing of money, I was reading Sapiens a few weeks ago, and they talk about the value of money and where it all started from. It started trading barley and went from there. And it's saying about in a transaction, if you have no monetary element, they're talking about the digital age and moving online and paperless. If you don't have that paper element, you no longer have a trust in someone, because if you're saying to someone, right, you owe me 20 quid, could you, and they say, I'll pay you back next week, you've got trust in them because you're getting a physical object. Because of the digital element to it, and you can't physically hold that, you lose that level of trust with them and think, are they going to pay it? Because you can't, even when you receive it, it's a case of you can't mentally tick it off in terms of, I've got this, I've got something to show for it. This is where it's intangible almost. And I think that's an interesting, like you say, that level of trust. And will it change your behaviour of how you purchase stuff and do those little chores?
Accountable for how we spend and what we spend our money on.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, it's kind of like moving it all into the realm of a credit card, where we kind of, we have credit cards. It's kind of like we've just got this endless sum of credit, where it's kind of like you've got £10,000 limit on your credit card, and then when you kind of hit that, and it's kind of like, you kind of have to go and have that conversation with the bank. But until that point, no one's kind of there to kind of intercept or turn around to you and say, you really should stop spending on your credit card because you don't have enough money to be able to cover that. And I think with the cashless, we're kind of moving into that element where people can't be accountable or kind of have that, maybe kind of have that level of control on how they spend.
Yeah. But do you think that's like a relearning though? Because we're talking from our perspective of having that experience, and you think what credit cards were like when, you know, credit cards generation, credit card, exactly. But I mean, that was that prime sort of 5-10 years where, you know, credit card was king. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it wasn't real money. It was, you know, money for free. It was all kind of sold like that. It was very much sold like that kind of ethos, and we definitely all got wrapped up in that. They're not like that anymore. They're not approached like that. And also what you're saying, I completely agree. You know, I can see how the physical transaction of teaching kids the value of money, but is that us imposing that method on them? Because they won't know any different. You know, I don't go in and pay. Maddie and Livy, they know that they can touch my card, or I have to put my number in. Do you know what I mean? I use my phone. That's how they see me pay. They don't see me, very rarely. You know, if we got some money, I'll let them give it to them. But to them, they look at how much the amount is before I tap my card. So they are learning that process. Yeah, exactly. So I wonder whether it's. So I do agree. There's that sort of physical transaction and transition, and, you know, understanding the value. But then, do you understand the value of money? Because it's such a, you know, you can get quite philosophical about it, can't you? In terms of, do you know what I mean? But I do agree with you, Toyin, about the credit card. But I think that whole approach has changed, and they're a lot, you know, they're not as easy to get anymore. And I wonder whether it was just our generational experience that, not that I'm putting any of you in the same generation as me, obviously, but it was very much, it was very much a thing then, wasn't it? Like you're saying, you know, you just sort of, no one taught you how to manage credit cards. I think it comes back to learning, actually. No one taught you how to manage money, or actually what credit cards are, and, you know, how they work. So whether that's just experience, or that, you know, that is just the way it will go. And I think at the moment, no one wants any cash, do they? Like you said, March, Toyin, you haven't used cash since March, you know. You don't go in and buy anything,
I literally haven't seen a penny. My first empty's just got a card in it, which doesn't come out. It just kind of just goes like that. On every kind of paper sheet.
And that's why that's what people need to. That is so easy to do.
That's dangerous as well.
From doing that to putting your card in and tapping it in is scary. How quick it is in your mind as well to just dismiss it.
Yeah, it's not real, isn't it? That's the same idea. I mean, it's almost the new credit card in a way. Contactless is the new credit card. It's that kind of, you know, it doesn't feel real when you're doing it. It almost gamifies it actually as well, doesn't it? Which is something that's quite interesting. But I also wonder whether, because I had an interesting experience when I used to travel for work. I had a traditional bank, and I had my Uber attached to my bank card. I didn't think anything about it until I got home, and I must have taken about 17 cabs in the US while I was away. And my traditional bank charged me £1.17 for every non-sterling transaction, okay? And I rang them up and was like, I didn't know this was a thing. You know, I just thought that because Uber was the kind of the front that I was using, that sorted it out. But absolutely not. I had no idea. Maybe a rookie mistake. But I felt like their response was so inhuman. I felt like they were so like, well, these are the rules and this is how it works. And it could tell that I was in the States from everything else that I was, you know, doing. But it didn't seem to understand the story and maybe even like, you know, stop the charges or something, or contact me at least. Didn't even send me an email or something. So I moved to a tech bank, like a fintech bank, just for that reason. And because I wouldn't get charged these fees. And instantly, when I've been abroad with my new snazzy little card, it knows, it understands, and it sends me tips, you know, of what I should be doing with money, and what the exchange rate is right now, and how it uses that exchange rate. And it's weird that although the actual banks sort of progressed into technology, it's actually become more human. I can actually speak to someone on like a quick chat or something online. I don't have to book an appointment with the bank and go in or wait on a call centre and listen to Greensleeves about 100 times or something. So it is interesting how, some things have become more human, I think, as well. There are some great advances that I think the people, like you were saying, Louis, the people that have kind of didn't think much of it and haven't moved on it, that they've missed out on. They've missed the boat, really. They're now behind.
And like you say, that shift is interesting because it's like shows a sign of the times. Before, when you say like your bank wouldn't tell you were just a number and it was like they're the rules, you got to stick to them. Now, as you say, that human element, it's showing that transition from where companies would be money, money, money to now that idea of trust and value and creating a personal relationship with your customer, showing them that we know you're here, but we're not going to charge you for that. This is what you're spending there. Are you sure you're okay to spend that? As you say, that human element, which come back to the idea of tailoring that personal experience for your customer rather than them just looking at a statement and being an extra 80 quid in debt and then because you're just a number and they've got their money from you and that's it. So definitely it's nice to see that there is, as much as technology is advancing, we're also seeing a more humane approach to it as such, that kind of voice.
That I mean, I know some of them are linked with obviously mainstream banks in terms of structure-wise, but fundamentally it's that kind of, when we've spoken about entrepreneurs and startups, how their ethos and their values, they build from the bottom up, don't they? They have an outlook, and it's the same thing with the newer banks, the modern sort of tech banks. They're on a clean platform to build. I remember when One Direct, when it was telephone banking before, they were just a telephone banking, and a few people, oh, that's a bit risky, it's like, and you can, they just phoned up and spoke to someone there and then, and you're just like, wow, rather than like you're saying, having to go through the automated, and show my age there, but it is, but they're in that privileged position, and if you talk about gamification, you think of all those Monzos and is it the other one, like the tap one that Toy talks about, that
Revolut, N24,
like the instant. I mean, the instant. I've got a Monzo. I just have it for. I don't use it regularly. I just have it for coffees or that. Tap it and literally within a second, a little emoji with a coffee and where I spent it. Do you know what I mean? Within a second, I can see it's reminding me and sending me a receipt. It's incredibly clever, but the cards, they're all fun. They're all they're engaging. I've also got more. I've got a Lloyd's account, and that's. Even though they try and modernise their sort of vision, it is much more corporate, traditional banking, and it's just interesting, even like the designing and the brand, and that sort of captivated of the market and how they've set themselves up. But they are, they are. It's a bit like Zoom in this current climate. They must be exploding because people need that. And the Monzo, you can't get. It's a live account. It's a live account. You can't have overdrafts. You can't have. It's like it is like a debit. It is just a debit in and out account. You can't have saving pots, but the whole terminology of it. Whereas with your Lloyds, they're like, want an overdraft? Do you want a credit card? Do you want to, do you want
free money?
This, Yeah, exactly. Feel. Here, have some more. Whereas, the Monzos are like, and all others, whatever. But this is just my experience. There's just like, have you created a savings pot? Do you want to do a collaborative savings pot with a friend to go on holiday? There's like all these options, but it's all like that going up equity. And Lloyd's is all the, I'll get you, extend your overdraft, have some more overdraft. Here, have another credit card. You need another one, Surely you need more privileges on your account. Here, have these. Pay this a month.
Need a loan.
Yeah.
Your house.
There's a loan. Yeah, exactly. There's a loan with your name. Oh, your mortgages. That all that kind of stuff. So none of it is. If you look at it as simple as that, that's all like I'll take from you, and you can owe me. Whereas the sort of more simplistic but actually very effective are, how can I support you? Save a pot for your holiday. What's a goal? Let's set a goal.
It's very millennial. I think the new fintech cards are very millennial driven because of the economic environment and the challenges that they face. That we kind of need to put some of these steps in place to help them, you know, in some cases, to be able to make those steps towards trying to save for a house or to save for holiday, and trying to kind of keep them away from living on credit cards, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, as a millennial, I can definitely agree that I rely on technology for an obscene amount of my life. And sometimes when you step back from it, you think, oh, that's a bit worrying. But actually, you know, there's a few things that I've taken technology on board for. You know, even I've got an app to drink water. And I know that sounds like a basic human thing, but I think because our lives are busier, which is a kind of an irony maybe because of tech, you do forget your kind of basic human needs sometimes, like, oh, I need to sleep, oh, I need to drink water. And so having apps that kind of remind you of those things, they're, you know, I think there's probably
it beeps every 20 minutes. If I don't move, it goes.
Yeah, it tells you to stand up. Yeah, I see that. I see one of the new Apple Watch features is hands.
Yeah, mine says "Get up, Faye."
Anne's got a proper angry man. He gets really annoyed with her on her wrist.
He starts like jumping. He does little jumping jacks. He's doing it now. He's getting excited because I've got 180 steps to make the hour. I'll just get up and run off.
Oh, is that why you bolted out earlier?
Yeah.
So I think all of that kind of before you left the building and came back, Fran, we started talking about how we move forward with this, you know, all the intelligence and information, and starting to get down, you know, like the retail space. And, you know, I was sort of saying originally when they first digital started coming into the retail space, it was literally just stands with iPads on. Do you know what I mean? It was really, they weren't interactive. And it's about that. I know you've touched on AI, and you know, I think Burberry are a really good example of finding ways to morph the technology to make it relevant. But equally, they're getting something from it, and you know, they're sort of trying to create that digital interaction of space. So it's still a retail or an experience, but there's a reason for doing it, because I think it's quite a hard thing to let go. And I think there's what you were going to say, what you were saying earlier, Louis, and one of your quotes that you sent over, Fran, was about the fact that we can't. It's happening, and it's finding the right fit for any company or any sort of product or any sort of platform that embraces the sort of digital, but understand that it has to have that human background to direct it to make it work effectively. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the bit where there's still quite a lot of disparity, isn't it? Because people think, oh, I've gone digital. I've got a smart show mirror, you know, fitting room mirror. I've got a smart fitting room, brilliant. You know, that I'm well down with the tech. Do you know what I mean? But actually, if you're not embracing it and how you use that effectively, it just becomes like the iPad on a platform, on a plinth. So how do we evolve, you know, how do we do that more to make it worthwhile for companies to invest and accept, I guess, as well?
Well, what I always find really interesting is probably one of the simplest things that, you know, working, because I used to work for a company that was, you know, hard tech people, and it was that idea that you should never build tech for the sake of tech, or never use tech for the sake of tech. You've got to be specifically solving an issue or specifically bridging a gap. And I find really interesting about those magic mirrors is that, you know, there's certain things in the fitting room that are really useful. You know, you don't want to poke your head out of the curtain and be like, can I have a size 12, please? It would be better if you could tap, you know, you could actually tap that thing. To understand more about fitting as well, because I think, especially within the fashion industry, understanding why things end up back on the rack. What's that missed loop between you taking it on, trying it on, and taking it back? Because they have that in the digital experience. You know, you have to kind of give a reason code for why you're bringing it back. But they miss that quite often in the shopping, like in the physical shopping experience. So there's so many things where it can be really useful and actually make the shopping experience a little bit more easier for the person, but also easier for the brand as well. But there's always those mistakes, like you say, of bringing in things just because they feel like that's what everybody's doing, or we need to do this now. Or we'll have an app, but the app doesn't do anything different from the desktop side. It doesn't add an element of experience at all, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, no, I do, because I've got the old H&M app, you know, and sometimes I don't feel like they're connecting sometimes with whatever I do in store with what I do online, and you know, the information I'm getting, and I just, that omni intelligence of data, it really needs to sort of be stepped up a gear to have that succinct experience. You know, I'm not saying they should know when I walk in the store, because that's taking it. I mean, there are obviously stores like that you know, you can walk in and they kind of, you know, there are sort of trials of that kind of stuff. But I mean, as in, you know, if you're going to missing, get those sort of gaps and missing, isn't it? So if you know, they should be matching up what I'm buying in store or what I'm returning in store with what I bought online and what I bought offline, because there's sometimes definitely a disconnect of you know, not acknowledging that, and you just think that's such a simple thing, especially when you've got like the, you know, the club card and they're collecting that data effectively. But there's definitely, it's not, you know, it's not, it doesn't send me an email with the return if I bought it online and returned it in store, you know, whereas you would think it would do that, wouldn't you? Because it's it's very, so I just wonder, I think there's still so much to learn, because people are sort of galloping ahead over here, but actually if you don't join those dots, like you said, that is such valuable information. I mean, how many times have we all been in where there's this, you know, one particular colour outfit that's on the rail, on the sale rail, and it's like, why is that there? You try on, that's why it's there, because of the cut, because of the fit, because of the whatever, you know, it's too hot if you're into fit and fabric and form, and you just think that could have been, you know, that could have been some quick data, because if the person tried it on and they had a vision of what they were going to look like, and they could instantly give some feedback on why they didn't choose it, and that's the motive side, is when you would actually engage with that, wouldn't you? Because you'd be so disappointed, you know.
I think that's why an article you put in, Fran, about customer data being the new oil, that's why it's so sought after, because like you say, if it does get to the stage where you're shopping online, you can't find it, so you go into store, you go in and they say, oh, nice to have you back, Mrs. Smith, we've actually got that medium in the dress that you were looking for online, here it is, straight away, oh, perfect, and they buy it. So as you say, connecting those dots and bringing that element of it to understand the why not rather than the why they buy, which is equally important. The why, of course, is just as important as why not. But having a parity between the two is so valuable for stores in terms of sales and understanding and customer retention, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, also stock levels.
Yeah.
But then that leads to like the next idea, kind of, which is automation. You know, the technology is also speeding up the background of producing product from any sector. So if it knows more about who you are, and I mean, a specific example would be fashion, knows your size, knows what you like, it doesn't have to have inventory. It can make, because of the speed that it could make something at, it could make it automatically. And again, there's some great opportunities in that in terms of, you know, inventory and not over making and over producing, which is just, you know, been a huge problem for brands financially, but also for the environment as well. So there's so many opportunities out there from tech, I think, that just haven't really been looked into enough, or there's barriers in the way, because as with anything, the same with like green energy and things like that, you have to kind of lay down the money first, don't you? You have to kind of invest in it, which can be quite a hard sell to perhaps a board that isn't that way inclined. And you start to then question things like how, you know, the people that are making these decisions high up, and, you know, we were talking about sort of mainstream banks and stuff, the people on those boards, they're not thinking the same way as maybe so much of the consumer bases that are more kind of tech focused. And so some things get missed because of the few people that are actually kind of holding the reins on it, really, which is quite interesting.
And I think that goes for a lot of different industries. I mean, in terms of talking about automation, one I think of straight away is car industry, with someone like Tesla, for example, now the most valuable car brand. in the world, but not just for the fact of automation of a self-driving car, just for the fact that statistically, historically, cars depreciate with value. Simple as that. When you buy it, you lose X amount of thousands, that's it. But with a Tesla, you get updates to it, like every month or 2 months. So that's taking a depreciating asset and upgrading it. So it's like showing how this automation and this updating and machine learning and technology is flipping an industry on its head. And you can see why now, when you see why Tesla is worth what it is worth, that these companies that are employing this kind of technology and this kind of human connection in terms of giving something more than just, as you say, the initial payment is higher, but it's that added value as you without having to oversell another product. So the automation and just shaking up industries completely.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely like things like running footwear as well, like where you can, where it understands more and actually the product gets better rather than depreciates, which I think can be quite interesting, and retrofitting things specifically for you, which are, all sorts of ways of looking at it. But kind of, I suppose, sort of getting towards the end of it, I just wanted to think about the idea of creativity, because I think the one thing that is always, when you start thinking about post-human, I doubt we'll ever get there, but it's always an interesting idea, and thinking about the things that machines can't do. And, working within a creative environment, all of us are creative people, there's definitely ideas and there's definitely the way that a creative mind works that a machine can't. So, for one example that I can think of is you can give, from an editor's point of view, you can give a machine bestseller information, and it can have all the bestseller information over a year. It can have, it can even add click through or something to that, but it still won't make a collection that looks any good. You couldn't put anything down the runway that a machine has made. It's really fascinating to think about that kind of artistic aspect that you can't replace, really. So, I don't think, and they have said that from the point of view of the creative economy, that our jobs, in terms of most creative jobs, you can't really replace those because it is a very uniquely human thing. So I didn't know what any of you guys thought about creativity and tech.
Yeah, well, I think it's so instinctive. It's not a linear boxable thing. Generally, I think everyone obviously has creativity in them of some form or another, whichever way you look at it. But it's not a formula. It's an intrinsic, fluid, agile set, which you can create some elements of, and you could create a model, and like you're saying, you could collect the data, and you could think of, if you're thinking of garments, just to sort of make it visual for everyone, you could work out the hemline, the waistline, the silhouette, and the shape. But that certain dart that was 2 degrees off standard that made that garment, that just comes from an instinctive feeling and a vibe of that season. It's that kind of thing, or that particular fabric and the way you fold that fabric or the way you form that fabric. That happens. I mean, if you think back to, Alexander McQueen, he was doing things the last second before they went on the walk, because that's just instinctively what felt for his action, So I think there is that element of looking at that sort of algorithms and looking at the data and the digital opportunities that can be combined with that to let them get on with the stuff and do, and then freeze that sort of element up to enhance it even more. But no, I don't think you can. I don't think you can, because we're not one-dimensional. We're not linear sort of thinkers, processors. We're very emotional. Emotionally intelligent and instinctive. Instinctive, I think, is really, and we listen to that kind of instinctiveness that you can't put a formula on. And your instinct's very different from my instincts, and Louis' processes are very different from Toyin's processes and outlook. but as a collective, you couldn't sort of put a formula on how we.
Yeah, I agree, Shah. I think the same for me. It sounds cliche, but when someone says you have an eye for something, you couldn't have that with an automation or with. I mean, I saw recently that Volvo created an ad specifically from machine learning, and I know Wired magazine done a similar thing where they gave all of the old Batman movies. They give all the scripts to a machine, and the machine learn it and produce a script in that. But when you read it back and when you see the Volvo one, it just doesn't have that connection. So when you see a car advert, you know a car advert. You lost that with the Volvo one. When you read this machine learned Batman script, it just didn't read right. And it's this whole thing of they could have all the knowledge and all the understanding, but if you haven't got that emotive and that eye for it, and just that, like Charlotte said, that instinct and what makes it tick for you as a human, you lose out on that. And that's such a big market to lose out on if you were to just say, let's just give it all to a machine, they can do it that way. If you lose that human element to your brand, that is paramount to selling still nowadays, even more so, like you say, with people wanting a more human element because everything is online. So yeah, I agree with Charlotte. I don't think you can put a price on the creativity side of it. That will always be there in terms of the human element, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to kind of creativity as well, it's kind of, it's not as well as kind of looking at automation and AI and stuff like that, thinking about, using creativity as a way of kind of challenging, concepts, designs, and also challenging technology and what that's doing and how we can kind of make it better, rather than just kind of accepting what's been kind of given to us, but also, using creativity in that kind of way to make things better and to keep challenging the narrative or what people are trying to tell us, as we was kind of saying before about the big four, the big four digital companies and how they are basically dominating how we consume and how we behave. And it's our job and it's our role as individuals to be able to challenge that, whether it's creatively or whether it's as consumers.
Yeah, and I think that you've kind of like hit the nail on the head there, is that you can be creative with tech. You can actually, all the people behind those, they're creatives. They've created something with tech, but the tech itself isn't able to replicate that kind of thought process. And like you say as well, is challenging it. I think that's probably the main thing as well when we're talking about truths and talking about algorithms and what we see and what we read. Kind of being a bit of a super sleuth with it. Who else is saying this? Where else am I reading this? How did this, information find me? And kind of always questioning it is kind of a protective element, isn't it? Which is quite interesting as well, I think. Fabulous. Well, that was exciting.
Really good.
It was.
Yeah, I can't believe this is our 9th one in the series. It's been brilliant.
It's been brilliant, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and what a way to end.
Yeah.
I think we are still without a jingle. We are still without a cycling helmet. What else was on your love list, Toyin?
I think those are my two things.
Oh, lipstick.
The lipstick. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, lipstick.
Yeah. So that's fine. You've got the summer, everybody.
Yeah.
We're good with that. We're accepting of that. I did start looking into some jingles yesterday, looking at something beginning with B, and I just got loads of kids' phonics. So I just thought maybe not. Which is probably my algorithms on YouTube, isn't it? Looking at
yeah.
So we know what Charlie will love.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Get the girls some phonics. We started this. I'm just going to, before Louis does our official sign off and everyone else does a quick round robin, because I'm very aware of time. It's just that we started this very random conversation, and just I have to say I am delighted with our afternoon bee space and what it's becoming, what it has come, and I think I just really enjoyed before as well on this, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. And thank you. This is one of my bucket lists to do a podcast. So
Yeah.
I know. I love a podcast. So hopefully we'll be back on campus or nearer to being back on campus. And I think one of the toy when we sort of started the podcast was to sort of keep it live, sort of interaction and participation on campus. We'll do some lunchtime stuff as well. That's something that we've got on the agenda, along with lots of other exciting stuff that we're planning. But has anyone else got anything else they'd like to round off with before Louis does his number 9 sign off?
Thank you for sticking with us, and we
when
we're back in the beginning of the new academic year.
Yeah, series 2.
Series 2. Yeah, we're back in September, aren't we? We're going to pick up back in September. We're going to take August off.
Yeah. Send any good topics as well in if
we'd love that.
You would like to come and present on, because we're going to open it up for students also to come and be part of the forum. So please drop us a line with any ideas that you'd like to talk about.
Lovely. Well, I think that ties it up then, guys. As we say, you've got a month to build Toyne's cycling helmet and make us some lipstick. So just get working soon, and we'll take some mixed circumstances if needs be. But if you could do it within the month, that would be great. So that's your summer project. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you all. You've been amazing. It's been a pleasure doing this with you guys, and I look forward to season 2, series 2. Hopefully with a jingle, maybe not a phonics jingle, maybe an actual jingle, but we'll get there. But we'll leave it there. Have a lovely summer, everyone, and we will catch up with you when we see you back at the business school, hopefully in September, October. But for now, thank you.
See you later.
Bye.